Welcome to Climate Quickies, bite-sized nuggets of climate goodness from our TEDxLondon experts in under 5 minutes.
In this week's Climate Curious, we're talking about sea otters protecting the world. Our guest today is the co-director of the Global Rewilding Alliance, Alister Scott. His mission? To reintroduce dwindling species back into their natural environment in order to encourage a completely natural and effective solution to climate change. Or, as he puts it, to animate the carbon cycle. Let's head over to Alister now to hear how sea otters are soaking up CO2. Stay curious!
I'm Alister Scott. I'm the executive director of an organisation called the Global Rewilding Alliance. We are an umbrella body for the global rewilding movement. We're a membership organisation for rewilding organisations, and we have, as of today, 249 rewilding organisations are our alliance partners, as we call them. So rewilding is this idea that nature conservation is not enough. We've had many decades of defending smaller and smaller patches of nature as human society expands. And at a certain point in the 90s, a group of people said that is not going to be enough, not least because the smaller patches of nature start to get genetic narrowing and so on. So we need larger areas. We need corridors to connect up the core areas. And then we need to bring back animal species that have gone missing from ecosystems, whether that be on land or in the oceans. So that's rewilding, and it particularly gives a central place for animals in the knowledge that wild animals drive ecosystem processes. They drive the health of ecosystems, whether that be in forests or in wetlands or in the ocean. So if you look at a forest, you've got to ask yourself, is that an empty forest that has all of its sort of wild animals like bison, otters, beavers, foxes, etc. missing, or is it a healthy ecosystem where those animals are present and making that ecosystem work properly? So there's a central place for animals in rewilding. Everybody assumes, a lot of people assume that in order to, for example, stabilize the global climate, we have to plant trees. And that is intuitively obvious because most of us have, been in our GCSE biology, we've learned that plants draw down carbon dioxide, but the very simplistic solution of just plant trees is very wide of the mark. So rewilding is trying to broaden people's approach to restoring nature and stabilizing the global climate. I came to rewilding very early. I saw the destructive effects of mechanized chemical agriculture on the landscape in the west of Ireland where I grew up. And it led to an epiphany, a sort of wake-up call where I was, if we sweep nature aside this blithely, we're in big trouble as a species because the web of life supports everything, all human well-being. So that happened when I was about 16, and ever since then I've been sort of working to make myself useful in the face of these big challenges that humanity faces if it's going to thrive into the future. And just before I discovered the Global Rewilding Alliance, I spent 15 years as a consultant helping catalyst, people who are making big change happen. And when I discovered the Alliance, I got in touch with the founders and said, this is what I do. I support people like you. How can I help? And they asked me to organize a retreat in the Swiss Alps for the 3 founders at the end of COVID because they hadn't seen each other for 2 years. So we walked and talked and strategized at the end of it. It was sort of like a 3-day job interview, and they sort of said, we think we need someone with your skills in communication and convening and so on. Would you like to join the team? So I joined the team as Director of Communications and Outreach, which I did for 2.5 years. And then just a week ago, I became the Executive Director. The sea otter story is a brilliant way for people to understand rewilding and the benefits not only for ecosystems, but also for the global climate. So when ecologists arrived in California in the late 1800s, they recorded sea otters as a non-native species because they'd been hunted out for their fur and for their meat. So they didn't find any sea otters, so they recorded them as non-native. It's a kind of shocking fact. But in fact, sea otters had always been on the west coast of America, playing a crucial role in the marine ecosystem. And what happened as a result of sea otters being stripped out was that the kelp forests then collapsed. Why did this happen? Well, because sea urchins, which are these little spiky creatures, they eat kelp. And without the predator, the sea otters eat dozens of these things every day. So without the sea otters, the population of sea urchins boomed, and they ate all the kelp. And the kelp forests just disappeared along most of the California coast and all the way up North America into Canada. So there's this huge kind of collapse in that ecosystem. Now, what do we know about kelp forests? Firstly, that they are an amazingly rich ecosystem. They're where a lot of sharks reproduce, for example, turtles and so on. Huge diversity of life relies on kelp forests. So when the forest disappeared, that spelt trouble for a lot of the marine ecosystem. We also know about kelp forests that kelp grows incredibly fast. In the summer, a frond of kelp can grow up to 1 meter a day. And that draws down a vast amount of carbon. So up to 20 times the amount of carbon that a terrestrial forest will draw down. Now that sea otters are coming back in California, they're now protected and they're being rewilded, reintroduced. They are eating the sea urchins, and as a result, the kelp forests are coming back. And this is what we call reanimating the carbon cycle. So we're bringing animals back into the carbon cycle, into their ecosystems. And by balancing out those ecosystems and helping them to recover, in this case, the kelp growing incredibly fast and coming back along huge stretches of the California coast, you're getting a vast amount of carbon being drawn down. And so we're reanimating the carbon cycle, bringing back animals that are playing this crucial role, not only in restoring these amazing ecosystems, beautiful places, but also in helping to stabilize the global climate by drawing down some of the huge amounts of carbon that we've put into the atmosphere, mainly by burning fossil fuels. I really recommend getting involved in a rewilding project. I've not heard a single person who's got involved in rewilding and hasn't come away happier, more connected to their local community, and just re-enchanted with beautiful wild nature. You know, I think a lot of us feel a bit beaten down by events out there in the world, war and climate anxiety and politics and so on. And just going out to a local environment, connecting with amazing people who are getting involved in rewilding and seeing how quickly nature can bounce back, it just lifts your spirits, fills your heart, and brings you new connections to human beings. You know, rewilding is at least as much about people as it is about nature. And so I think if you're feeling challenged by life, find a local rewilding project, find them on the internet, ring them up, send them a message and say, how can I help? And I can promise you that anybody who's trying to do something like this, they will so appreciate your help, whether that be stuffing envelopes or digging a pond, or, I don't know, you might have more specialist skills. You might be a lawyer or an accountant, or you might be a digital native. You know, there's a place for everyone, and projects really need a diversity of skills involved. So that I thoroughly recommend getting involved. If you want to help us at the global level, so we are the Global Rewilding Alliance. Our website is globalrewilding.earth. You can find us on Instagram and LinkedIn in particular, just Global Rewilding Alliance. Everything from liking a post to sharing a post, reposting, sending it to your friends, or, you know, just even those simple things help get the word out there. The majority of the world still haven't heard about rewilding. So we need a lot of help getting the word out. It's such a beautiful, what I call a system catalyst. You know, we're solving many problems all at once. But if you want to get more involved, on our website, we have a volunteer interest form. You can write to us there, tell us what your skills are, what you want to learn, how you would ideally like to be involved, where in this country or elsewhere. We have, as of today, 249 alliance partners around the world in every continent. So we launched this talent pool, and within a week of launching it, we had connected up someone in Portugal with a group in Brazil, and that woman is now working as a volunteer in Brazil. So, yeah, there are real possibilities for going and following your dream and getting involved in rewilding. I thoroughly recommend it.
Thanks for listening to this quickie.
This episode was created by our superstar podcast team at TEDxLondon. Until next time,
Stay curious.